the mimosas had been flowing. My sister Isabella was posting photos to Instagram. #family success, #real estate wins. The restaurant smelled of truffle oil and quiet money, the kind of place where waiters materialized silently and bills arrived in leather folders. Mother had chosen it specifically for the announcement, booking the private room with the view of the harbor. 2.5 million, Dad repeated, sliding the purchase agreement across the white tablecloth until it hit the stem of my water glass. All cash offer. No contingencies. Closes in 21 days. Isabella leaned over to look. That's actually under market value, isn't it? The penthouse next to yours sold for 2.8 last year. We priced it to move quickly, Mother said, her tone suggesting this was sound business strategy rather than what it actually was. Your father and I have been managing that property for years while you've been occupied with your little nonprofit work. The little nonprofit work. The one that housed 43 formerly homeless veterans in transitional housing across 3 buildings I actually owned. The one where I worked 60-hour weeks for a salary of $48,000 when I could have made $240,000 in corporate real estate. But those numbers weren't relevant to my family's narrative. When did you list it? I asked quietly. 3 weeks ago. Dad's voice carried that familiar edge of impatience, the one that said I should be grateful, not questioning. You never responded to our messages about maximizing the property's value. So we handled it. Like we've handled everything else while you've been playing charity worker. Playing. 8 years of work reduced to a child's game. I remembered the day I bought that penthouse. 7 years ago. I was 26, fresh off my first major property flip, holding a cashier's check for the down payment. Dad had laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Sweetheart, downtown penthouses aren't for girls who major in social work. You'll be eaten alive by property taxes." I bought it anyway. Paid cash within 3 years. The waiter appeared with more coffee. I waited until he left. "Who's the listing agent?" "Marcus handled it," Mother said, referencing my brother. "He just got his real estate license. This is an excellent opportunity for him to build his portfolio." Marcus, who'd failed the licensing exam twice. Marcus, who'd asked to borrow $15,000 last year for business expenses, that turned out to be a trip to Ibiza. Marcus, who wasn't at this brunch because he was showing the property to the buyers for their final walkthrough. "The inspection is scheduled for Friday," Dad continued. "Buyers are pre-approved, earnest money is in escrow. This is happening, Camila. We're doing you a favor. That penthouse has been a burden on you for too long." A burden. The property I'd renovated myself, learning to install crown molding from YouTube videos at 2 a.m. The home office where I'd written 17 successful grant applications. The rooftop terrace where I'd celebrated 3 years sober alone, because my family said my sobriety anniversary wasn't worth attending. Isabella's phone buzzed. "Marcus says the buyers love it. They're already talking about knocking down walls for an open concept." My walls. My home. Being discussed like it was already theirs. I pulled out my phone, opened my email. There it was, buried in my spam folder where I'd filtered all messages from my family 6 months ago, regarding your property at 847 Meridian Tower. Not a request. A notification. The real estate board investigators' call came 3 days later. Tuesday morning, 9:47 a.m. I was in my actual office, the nonprofit's headquarters in a building I'd purchased and renovated in the warehouse district, reviewing budget reports when my phone rang. "Ms. Rivera? This is Detective Sarah Chin with the Real Estate Regulatory Division. I need to ask you some questions about 847 Meridian Tower, Unit PH2. The coffee in my cup had gone cold. Outside my window the city moved. Cars, people, the construction crane on the new affordable housing development I'd quietly funded. Life continuing, oblivious. "I'm aware of the property," I said carefully. "Are you aware it's currently listed for sale at $2.5 million? I became aware 4 days ago." Pause. The sound of papers shuffling. "Ms. Rivera, according to county records you are the sole owner of this property. Deed recorded November 2018, no liens, no co-owners. Yet the listing agreement shows Marcus Rivera as the authorized agent with power of attorney to sell. Did you grant this power of attorney?" The room felt smaller. Colder. "No." "Did you sign any documents authorizing the sale of this property?" "No." Did you authorize your brother to obtain his real estate license using your properties as portfolio examples? I hadn't known about that. No. Detective Chen's voice shifted, became more formal. Ms. Rivera, I need you to come to our offices this afternoon. Bring your original deed, any documentation of ownership, and any communications with your family regarding this property. We're opening a formal investigation into fraudulent conveyance and unlicensed real estate activity. I'd spent 8 years believing that if I just succeeded enough, achieved enough, proved my worth enough, my family would finally see me. But their narrative was more important than my reality. I'd been feeding the slot machine of their approval, convinced the jackpot of love was mathematically inevitable. It wasn't. It never had been. The gambler's fallacy applied to family. The sunk cost of blood relation. That afternoon I sat across from Detective Chen in an office that smelled of burned coffee and printer toner. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with reading glasses pushed up into her dark hair and a wedding band that caught the fluorescent light. "Walk me through the purchase," she said, recording device on. I did. The entire history. How I'd saved the down payment through my first property flips. How Dad had said I was playing real estate investor and would lose everything by 30. How I'd bought the penthouse for $1.8 million, paid it off in 3 years through strategic property management of my other holdings. How my family had never once visited the home I'd created. Detective Chen took notes, her pen moving steadily across the legal pad. When I finished, she sat back. "Your brother filed the power of attorney with the county clerk 3 months ago. The signature is remarkably good, I'll give him that. But ink dating shows the document was created last month using ink released in March 2025, yet it's dated November 2018. The notary seal is fraudulent. The notary named died in 2022. My hands had gone cold. How far did the sale get? She opened a thick folder. Listing went live 3 weeks ago. 6 showings. 3 offers. Your parents accepted one. All cash $2.5 million from a couple relocating from Seattle. Earnest money of $50,000 is in escrow. Inspection was scheduled for last Friday, which is when our office was alerted. Alerted by whom? Detective Chen smiled slightly. The buyer's agent noticed the listing agent's name, Marcus Rivera, was also listed as the seller's brother on the property disclosure form. She thought it was odd that the actual owner wasn't involved in a multi-million-dollar transaction. She called us. A stranger had protected my home more than my own family. The buyers are devastated, Detective Chen continued. They'd already given notice on their rental, hired movers, enrolled their kids in the downtown school. But they're victims here too. Your family defrauded everyone involved. She pulled out more documents. We pulled Marcus's licensing file. He used photographs of your penthouse. Interior photos he must have taken without permission, as part of his portfolio to obtain his license. He claimed he had extensive experience managing high-value residential properties. The review board is already moving to revoke his license permanently. He never managed anything, I said quietly. I manage everything. My nonprofit operates 3 buildings providing transitional housing. We've housed 43 veterans over 6 years. 91% success rate transitioning to permanent housing. But my family calls it playing charity worker. Detective Chen's expression shifted. Recognition. Wait. Camila Rivera. You're the C. Rivera who donated the anonymous $500,000 matching grant to the Veterans Housing Initiative last year. I nodded. My brother used your program. Marine Corps Iraq War veteran. He's been in permanent housing for 14 months now because of your organization. She paused, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. Your family tried to steal from someone who's saved lives. The investigation moved with procedural precision. Each step was its own small devastation for my family, its own quiet vindication for me. Step 1. Detective Chen's team pulled all financial records. Every property I owned, 8 buildings total, including the 3 housing my nonprofit's programs. Total portfolio value, $14.2 million. My salary from the nonprofit, $48,000 annually. The math told the story my family had refused to see. Step 2. Handwriting analysis. The forensic examiner's report came back with 99.3% certainty that the power of attorney signature was forged. Marcus had practiced, you could see that in the document. But he'd used too much pressure on the downstroke of the R, a tell that proved it wasn't my hand. Step 3. Interview transcripts. Mother, we were helping her maximize an underutilized asset. Dad, she wasn't responding to our guidance. Isabella, we thought she'd be grateful. Marcus, no comment, attorney present. Grateful. For theft. Step 4. The buyer's lawsuit. They sued for their earnest money, their moving expenses, their children's therapy costs for the disruption. $127,000 total. My parents' homeowner's insurance refused to cover fraud, so it came from their retirement account. Step 5. The real estate board's formal findings. Marcus's license revoked permanently. $50,000 fine. Referral to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Step 6. My civil suit. I sued for attempted theft, emotional distress and defamation. All those years of playing charity worker, documented in emails, texts, holiday cards where they'd mocked my little nonprofit hobby in writing. Step 7. The DA's review. Wire fraud because they'd planned to receive money across state lines from the Seattle buyers. Forgery. Identity theft. The charges carried 2 to 7 years per count. Step 8. The plea negotiations. Marcus took a deal 18 months, eligible for parole in 9. Mother and dad as co-conspirators, got probation and community service. 300 hours each. Court-ordered restitution of $180,000 for my legal fees and emotional damages. Step 9. The enforcement. Immediate. The judge's order included a clause requiring monthly payments garnished directly from their pensions. The court notes with particular dismay that the defendants attempted to profit from their daughter's compassionate work housing vulnerable veterans while simultaneously demeaning that work as frivolous. This demonstrates a stunning moral bankruptcy. Step 10. Appeals denied. 3 times. The evidence was too clear, the fraud too obvious. The ghost ledger came later, after the legal proceedings ended. I created an actual spreadsheet, titled it The Invisible Cost, and filled it in during 3 sleepless nights. Item 1. Every Sunday dinner where they discussed Isabella's marketing job or Marcus's entrepreneurial ventures, but changed the subject when I mentioned housing another veteran. Cost 43 occasions. 43 times my life's work was too boring to discuss. Value. Professional recognition never recovered. Item 2. My 30th birthday. Mother had said, still playing with those charity projects? When are you going to get a real job? In front of her entire book club. Cost. Dignity. 1 public humiliation. Non-refundable. Item 3. The 8 years I'd paid for every family dinner, every celebration, every emergency loan. $180,000 documented. They'd called me stingy when I'd started saying no. Cost. Financial security I'd rebuilt. Trust I'd never get back. Item 4. The Penthouse viewing I'd invited them to 7 years ago. They'd cancelled last minute for Isabella's apartment warming, her studio apartment she was renting for $2,200 monthly. They'd gone to that. Cost. The joy of sharing my first major success. Irreplaceable. Item 5. My sobriety anniversary, 3 years, the same day as Marcus's birthday party. You can celebrate being sober anytime, Dad had said. His birthday is once a year. Cost. The acknowledgement that staying alive mattered. Priceless. The numbers didn't lie. They never had. I'd just been reading the wrong ledger. 6 months after the court proceedings ended, I stood on my penthouse terrace at sunset. The city spread out below, lights beginning to flicker on as evening settled in. My terrace, my view, my home that I'd protected. The restraining orders were permanent. 300 yards minimum distance. No contact except through attorneys. My nonprofit had expanded. We just opened a 4th building. Capacity for 72 veterans now. The city had recognized our work with a formal commendation. The mayor's office had called it transformative community impact. My property portfolio had grown too. Buildings 9 and 10 both acquired in the past 4 months. One was another housing facility. The other was a commercial property that generated enough income to fund 3 full-time case managers. Isabella had tried to reach out through a mutual friend. Mom and Dad want to apologize. The friend had said it hopefully, like reconciliation was the obvious next step. I'd said no. Some people believe forgiveness means reconciliation. It doesn't. Forgiveness is releasing the anger so it doesn't poison you. Reconciliation requires the other party to have genuinely changed, to have done the work of transformation. My family had shown remorse only after legal consequences, after their retirement fund was drained, after their social circle learned what they'd tried to do. That's not transformation. That's damage control. Marcus served 9 months. He lives 2 states away now, working at a car dealership. Mother volunteers at a food bank, court-ordered, not chosen. Dad's golf buddies stopped calling after the story hit the local news. Prominent family attempted to defraud daughter's veteran housing nonprofit. The social cost was its own consequence. The country club membership they'd been so proud of? Revoked. Not consistent with our values, the board letter had said. I thought about revenge a lot in those months after the trial. What it meant, what it should mean. I'd learned this. Revenge isn't rage. Rage is hot, impulsive, destructive to everyone including yourself. Revenge is patience sharpened into strategy. It's surviving their dismissal so completely, so successfully, that they're forced to confront their own failures reflected in your success. I didn't destroy my family. I simply refused to be destroyed by them, and in protecting myself, the truth destroyed them instead. The boundaries stayed firm. No birthdays, no holidays, no just checking in messages. The door I'd spent 32 years holding open for their approval. I closed it. Locked it. Changed the locks. My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Chin. My brother just completed his first semester at community college. Business degree. Says he wants to work in nonprofit housing management. Thought you'd want to know. Your work keeps rippling out. I did want to know. That's what mattered now. The ripples, the impact, the lives changed. Not the people who'd shared my DNA but never my values. From the rooftop of the penthouse they tried to steal, I watched the city lights multiply against the darkening sky. 8 buildings. 72 veterans housed. One life rebuilt from the ashes of a family that never deserved me. The account was closed. The balance was 0. And I was finally, completely free.